there continues to be an avalanche of anger and disgust on the eastern coast of the United States. Most people would never recognize how terrible juvenile delinquency is. But ever since the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, it's just gotten actually much, much worse. Looking at the copycat stories of what happened back in the 90s and early mid-2000s, we gotta learn ourselves that we can't copy the garbage of what's actually happened. What we know now, or what the viewers know, is as insensitive and feloniously classless. One of the projects I wanted to help is Armed Citizens Against Domestic Violence Act, and they have an absolute right to protect victims against domestic abuse. There are federal laws that prohibit domestic violence, but that doesn't stop you from making the unlawful flight to avoid prosecution while your charges and your accusations and complaints are still pending. In fact, the U.S. Marshal Service and the FBI are two of the agencies who've used unlawful flight to avoid prosecution when people start crossing state lines to disguise their feloniously bad behavior. And what's even more worse, there are copycats of the carnage and the cataclysmic damages that are happening not in just Virginia and southern New Jersey or the east coast of the United States, but it's happening all over the world and even across the country. That's why I am so angry that there are no new laws that protect domestic abuse victims, but do protect the violators who would continue to violate their victims. Have most people not recognized they are not military? They're not armed citizens? And when I say armed citizens, I mean they're armed with the knowledge and the courageous memories and the honesty they bring to every part of the table. Look, I know this is a very sensitive and very cataclysmically confidential issue, but we can't let our juveniles run the streets. That's when the guidelines have to be put in and the boundaries have to mean no means no. I have been more than fortunate over 20 years to emphasize the saying of no means no. What we know now is inexcusable as it is embarrassing. Don't shame the victims of the people who stand up for their courage. Shame the attackers and violators who bring nothing but evil to the table. Whether it's between the 1st to 6th degree of burns, we can't compare evil, but we can compare the degree of the dangers that could produce that level of evil. What could happen next could be armed citizenry and TV journalism. We don't need that. I'm supportive of Larry Mente's opinions, and I fully respect his honesty, and I fully respect news coverage and media who behave like proper citizens. It's not about news outlets or media rivalries. It's about the behavior and attitude of every individual. Look, if you don't like getting into the imbalances of them, that's perfectly fine. Don't hold them to a lower standard than the copycat violators that destroy and demolish the carnage of the courage they bring to the table. It is just as discriminatory as silencing your own family and discriminating the victims. I'm Nicholas Medovich.